All right. Looks like we have a sunflower matzav going on outside. Thankfully, things haven't been so sunflowery recently, which is very nice. But hopefully these people will realize that I'm recording Babylon Talmud and they'll kindly relocate. Today, for Jordan. How are you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Aleph, Daf 41 of Masechta Gittin. Friends, the sunflower people outside, friends. Maybe Hillel, if you're at Shuk Machne Yehuda, maybe you can run over here to the park and say, "Hey, people, can you keep it down?" All right. Or maybe if Rabbi Yisrael's walking by, or Yanki Lazar, any of the people who are walking around the area, just ask the sunflower people to maybe, go away. All right, we're on Daf Mem Amud Beis. Givaldik. We're at the Mishnah on Daf Mem Amud Beis. And we're going to learn two Mishnahs today. I'm talking about Be'etzim, different scenarios of Avodim. Okay, so we're going to start the Mishnah on Daf Mem Amud Beis. Evet shaso Rabu aputiki la'achirim. Okay, so Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven. Reuven says, "Okay, thank you very much. I will pay you back. If I don't pay you back, here's my Eved. Right, my Eved is your Eved if I don't pay you back." V'shicharo. But then he frees him. The kasha is who's freeing the Eved. It's going to be machlokus in the Gemara. This whole Mishnah is like unclear. We have to sort of understand it through the lens of the Gemara. Shura sadin ena Eved chayiv klum. The Eved is not chayiv anything. Elam pnei tikkun olam, but because of tikkun olam, kofin is rabo. We force the master vosa also ben chorin, and we make him free. Because of shtar al domov, and then we write a shtar for his value. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel eno kosev el mashacher. He doesn't write it; he frees him. In order to understand the Mishnah, you can't really understand the Mishnah without the Gemara. So, I did a horrible translation there, but mamash, we're about to jump into trying to figure out how do you understand this Mishnah. So, says the Gemara, Evet shaso rabba patiki v'shichuro. Okay, so you have Epis an Eved. You have a Reuven and a Shimon. So Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven, and Reuven says, "Look, if I don't pay you back, you can have my Eved." One second, I gotta rub my nose because my nose needs a little rubbing. Okay, but hopefully we could sort that out because, we gotta go fight there. I can't just be rubbing my nose. Okay. Mi shechro. So the Gemara jumps right into it. So who's doing the freeing over here? Okay, so again, so the matzav is Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven. Reuven says, "If I don't pay you back, Shimon, my Eved is yours." Now what exactly happens? Mi shechro. Who's freeing the Eved? So Amar Rab says, Rabo Rishon, it's Reuven, right? The master, Reuven, right? Reuven is the borrower, and it's Reuven's Eved, and Shimon is the lender. So Reuven frees his Eved. So after having told Shimon that if he doesn't pay him back, then he can have the Eved, he then goes and frees the Eved. Now Shura Sadin, Eno Eved Chayev Klum L'Rabo Sheni. Now once the Eved is free, so he doesn't hold anything to Shimon, right? Meaning the Eved is free. He's moving on with his life. Kidirave, like Rave, Domarave, Hektish Chometz v'Shichur Mafkim Midei Shibud. Right? That by Hektish Chometz and Shichur, there's no Shibud. What the heck does that mean? It means that if you have, let's say, a cow, right? And the cow was Meshubit to alone. And then you make the cow to a korban. So it's no longer Meshubit to the loan. Chometz, right? If you have chometz, that's Meshubit to alone. And then you borrowed money from Novik Chom, you made chometz Meshubit to the loan. Now it's Pesach, and it becomes chometz over love of Pesach. It's no longer Meshubit to the loan after Pesach, as well as Shichur. If you have an Eved, that's Meshubit to the loan, like in this example. Right? Reuven says that if I don't pay you back, my Eved is yours, but then he's Meshacher the Eved, Sumafkin Midei Shibud, so then there's no longer a Shibud. And the Eved is free, so the Eved is not beholding to Shimon at all. But because of Tikkun Olam, Shema Yimtze'enu Bashuk, because maybe Shimon is going to, notice the Eved in the marketplace, V'yomaylo, and he's going to say to the now Ben Chorin, but who was an Eved, Avdi Uta, you are my Eved. And if Shimon does this, right, so Reuven freed the Eved. The Eved is no longer an Eved. Shimon has nothing to do with the Eved anymore. But we're concerned that maybe Shimon is going to see the once Eved and say to the Eved, you're my Eved. And then people are going to, the Yentis in the bungalow colony on Shabbos afternoon are going to, one of them was there when this happened and she takes note of it, and they're going to be sitting around on Shabbos afternoon eating, drinking Diet Coke and low-fat mandel bread and talking about everybody. And this Yent is going to recall what she saw, that apparently this guy is an Eved. And they're going to say that, they're going to say that the children are of other, the Yent, you have to be concerned about the Yentis. So out of concern of the Yentis, so Kofin is Rabo Sheni, so we force Shimon, Ve'ose also Ben Chorin, and he makes him be'etzem a Ben Chorin v'chosev Eved Shtar al Dama. So what we do is where am I? So again, so what happened? So be'etzem Reuven freed his Eved. We're concerned that Shimon is maybe going to see him in the market and create a whole mess with the Yentis. So Shimon frees, meaning the Eved is already free, but Shimon nonetheless writes him a get shichur, right? But also Ben Chorin, right? V'chosev Eved, right? So Shimon makes the Eved free, even though he's already free. V'chosev Eved shtar al Domov, and then the Eved pays the Shimon his value, so that they can kind of close up this whole thing. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel eino Eved kosev ela meshacher kosev. Well, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, it's not the Eved who has to write this shtar and pay the Shimon. Rather, it is the Meshacher, the Reuven has to write this document. What is the machlokas between the Tanakama and Reb Shimon? Tanakama who says that the Eved has to pay and has to write the document, and Reb Shimon Gamliel who says that Reuven has to write the document. B'mazik shibudo shel chavero komiflige. The machlokas is, how do you deal with the situation where somebody deliberately ruined the shibud, right? The arrangement that Reuven and Shimon had was that if Reuven fails to pay back Shimon, so then the Eved goes to Shimon. Reuven then goes ahead and frees his Eved, ruining the arrangement that he had with Shimon, right? Reuven freed his Eved, ruining the arrangement that he had with Shimon. So what happens in that case where somebody ruins this arrangement? So the Marsavar Chayev. So Reb Shimon Gamliel says that Reuven is Chayev, and therefore Reuven has to write this document to Shimon for the value of the Eved. Marsavar Potter, whereas the Tanakama says that Reuven is Potter, and therefore the Eved has to write this document. At Manami, it's also stated Hamazik Shibudo Shachaveru, if somebody damages the shibud of his fellow, then we arrive at this exact machlokas between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and the Rabbanon about how do we treat somebody who ruins a shibud. Ula Omar. Now Ula explains the Mishnah differently. Mi shechura, who's the one who's freeing the Eved? Rabo Sheni, Shimon. Okay, so Reuven borrows $1,000 from Shimon. Reuven says to Shimon, if I don't pay you back, then my Eved is yours. Shimon then frees the Eved. Now, obviously, Shimon can't actually free the Eved. It's not his Eved, right? Reuven hasn't yet defaulted on the loan. Shura Sadin, Eino Eved Chayev Klum B'mitzvahs. So, technically speaking, Shimon freeing the Eved means nothing. And the Eved, right, an Eved is, of course, is chayiv in mitzvahs like an Eved Knani is chayiv in mitzvahs like an Isha, like a woman is. Once he goes free, he becomes a full-fledged Yid, and he's chayiv in mitzvahs like a man is. Now, so what the Gemara is saying is, when Shimon frees the Eved, Eino Eved chayiv klum b'mitzvahs, there's no change in his status, and in terms of that, now he'd be chayiv in more mitzvahs if he's free, but he's not free. There's no change in his status. Ela mipnei tikkun olam, but because of tikkun olam, shari yotzo olav Shem ben Chorin, that now that Shimon freed this Eved, even though he had no, he didn't have the power to do that, but now people are saying, right, the Yentis in the bungalow colony on Shabbos afternoon are sitting around and they're talking about, did you hear that this Eved is free now? So Kofines Rabo Rishon, so because Shimon now caused the Yentis to know, to think that the Eved is free, so at this point we force Reuven now to free the Eved. Now the thing is that the Eved is worth more than the loan, right? The Eved is worth more than $1,000, and now, so Reuven borrowed $1,000, but now he's being forced to free his Eved. Ve'ose also ben Chorin, so Reuven frees the Eved, v'chosev Eved shtar al domav, and the Eved, now that he goes free, he writes a document to Reuven, his previous master, saying that, I'm worth $100,000. You borrowed $1,000. I will get back to you with $99,000. Fine. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer says, Reb Shimon ben. Okay, fine. Fine. Okay, so it's the Eved writing the document. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer says, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eno Kosev Ela Meshachrer Kosev. Whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, it is Shimon who has to write this document to Reuven, saying that he's going to make up the difference to Reuven. What's the machlokas? Behezik she'eno nikr kol miflagei. The question is damage that isn't recognizable, right? Meaning Shimon caused Reuven damage. He lost his Eved now because of what Shimon did, but it's not recognizable, right? He didn't, break something. So the question is it considered nezek that Shimon would be responsible for? Masaver shmei hezek. So Shimon ben Gamliel says yes, it is considered hezek, and therefore Shimon has to pay for it. Umasaver lo shmei hezek. Whereas Tanakame says that no, it's not, and therefore the Eved, Shimon is not responsible for it. The Eved writes that document for the difference. Fine. Ula my taime loyamar kirab. Ula, who says that it is Shimon who's freeing the Eved. How come he doesn't say like Rav, who says that it's Reuven who's freeing the Eved? So Amar Loch, Sheni, Rabo Korisle. So Ula would say, well, the reason why it is, where am I? What? Yeah, what? Who? What? Ula my time lo Amar Kirav. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, oh, yeah, exactly. Ula, how come Ula doesn't say like Rav? Rav says that it's Reuven who's freeing him, right? So how come Ula doesn't say that it's Reuven who's freeing him? So, because Amalach, Ula will say to you, Sheni Rabo Korile, is Shimon called his Rav, his master, meaning because in Rav's scenario, Shimon needs we force Shimon to write a get shichur, right? Now, what does it say in the Mishnah? Evet shaso rabu aputiki lachem v'shichuro. Okay, shuasadin ena evet chayiv klum elam pnei tikkun olam kofan as rabo also ben chorin. Right? It says that we then force Rabu, his master, to make him a ben chorin. Now, in Rav's scenario, that is Shimon, but Shimon's not his master, so therefore Ula prefers his interpretation, where Shimon's the one who frees him, and it's Reuven who needs to write this document. Okay, fine. Well, no, sorry, it's not Reuven is writing the document, but Reuven is we force Reuven to free him, right? Meaning in Ula's scenario, it's Shimon who's saying that the Eved is free, and because he said that, we then force Reuven to actually free him. V'Rav my time lo Amar Ula, and how come Rav doesn't say like Ula? Amar lach sheni meshachrer karisle. Well, because the Mishnah says Eved shesor Rabba v'tiki v'shichraro, and he freed him, right? In Rav says yeah, but in Ula's case, Shimon isn't actually freeing him, so therefore it can't be Shimon. Okay, fine. Itmar ha'ose sadeu aputiki lachem. Okay, so if Shimon lends Reuven $1,000, as Reuven borrows $1,000 from Shimon, And Reuven says to Shimon, look, if I don't pay you back, so then this field is yours. Vishat fanar, and then the field gets ruined. It gets drowned, rain, it gets ruined. Gets flooded. Ami Shapirnoye, Amr Rabbi Yochanan. It says Ami Shapirnoye in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. I don't think that this is, my understanding is that this is not Rabbi Ami. This is, so maybe named Rabbi Ami Vardino or something. But I don't think this is the regular Rabbi Ami, even though Rabbi Ami often quotes Rabbi Yochanan, but maybe it is, I don't know. But Ami Shapirnoye, Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Eino Gove Mishar Nechosim. So it says Ami Shapirnoye that Shimon cannot collect from other property, right? Meaning Reuven was mishabed a field to Shimon as part of the loan. The field got ruined. Shimon cannot say, okay, I'll take a different field. But Avud Shmuel Amar Gov Mishar Nechosim. Whereas Avud Shmuel says, sure, Shimon can take from different property. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. That says Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Mishum da Ami Shapirnoye, who? Well, just because his name is Ami the beautiful, but he says things that aren't beautiful. Meaning, right? Because all the arrangement was, what was the arrangement? It was he didn't say this specific field. He said, look, I'm going to give you a field if I don't pay you back. But he should be able to take from other, if that field gets ruined, so let Shimon collect from other fields. So the Targum Shmaite will explain that Ami Shapirnoye is talking about the Amalei lo yeh l'cha peron elo mizo. Well, it's talking about a situation where Reuven said to Shimon, if I don't pay back this specific field and no other will be meshubad to the loan, and therefore if it gets ruined, Shimon can't collect from other properties. Tanyan Amiyachi B'taka. Also learn in a brayso like this, also sadeu aputiki la'acher, that if Reuven makes his field meshubad to a loan, vishat fanar, and then the field gets ruined gets drowned in a river. Govim Mishar Nechosim, Shimon can collect from other property. Vim Amarlo, Lo Yeh L'cha Peron Elamizo. But if Reuven says that I will pay you back only from this field specifically, Eino Govim Mishar Nechosim, then Shimon cannot collect from other fields. Tani Idach, we have another brayso that says, Ha'osu Sadeu Aputiki Lebal Chov, that if Reuven makes his field meshubad to Shimon, V'lichsubas Isha. Alternatively, if a fellow makes his field meshubad for his wife, to pay for his wife's ksuba, govin mishar nechosim, so his wife or Shimon can collect from other property if they need to. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Baal Chov govin mishar nechosim. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that Shimon can collect from other properties, but Isha eino govin mishar nechosim. But his wife, if something happened to that field, she wouldn't collect from other fields. She'ein darka shel isha lechazer al batidin, because the assumption is that his wife would not want a situation where if this field is sold or something happens to it, then she has to go to the next field. Then she's got to kind of work out with all the different purchasers, who purchased first, who purchased second, and figure out who she's going to collect from, and it becomes too complicated, and she's not going to want that, and therefore at the time when she accepted or the ksubah, it was assuming that it's the specific field that's referred to the ksubah and no other. Okay, and now we get to a new Mishnah, which talks about, okay, let's see what it talks about. Mishachetzu eved v'chetzu ben chorin. Oh, so if you have a fellow who is, he was an eved, but now he's a 50% eved. He's 50% eved, 50% ben chorin. Over the Shabu Yom Echad v'Satzma Yom Echad Tivri Basil. So Basil says, all right, you have this guy who's 50% each, right? So let's say, for example, you have an eved who's jointly owned by two people. One of them frees his half of the eved. The other one keeps it. So now you have this eved who's 50% he's free, 50% he's an eved. So says Basil, okay, well, Sundays he works for himself, Mondays he works for the master, Tuesday he works for him as a ben chorin, Wednesday he works as an eved. He alternates days. Okay. Beshami says, Takantem is Rabbo, Vesatzma lo Takantem. Beshami says to Basil, look, your arrangement works out well for the master who still owns 50% share, because he gets what he's owed, right? If even when the eved was owned by both partners, essentially he was only able to get half of the value of what the eved produces. So he continues to get half of the value, right? Sunday the eved works for himself. Monday he works for the master. So the master continues to get everything that he ever got. But the Eved is not in a good place, because Lisa Shifcha Yevsher, the Eved can't marry a Shifcha Knainis anymore because Shekvar Chetzu Ben Chorin, because he's 50% free. Bas Chorin Yevsher, and he can't marry a Jewish woman, Shekvar Chetzu Eved, because he's still 50% Eved. Yibatel. So we'll say, okay, so let him just not, okay, so he won't get married, he won't have children. But the world was created in order to have children. That the Eibusha didn't create the world to be desolate, he created it to be dwelled upon with people. So what do you do in this case? So kofin es rabo v'osa oso ben chorin. So what we do is we force the partner who still owns half of the slave to free him, and the Eved then writes, to the master who just freed him. He writes him a document that'll pay him, 50% of his value. That he has to pay him for his loss. And Beisil said to Beis Shammai, Yutaka, what you're saying makes sense. And they agreed with Beis Shammai that we would force the second owner to free his share as well. So says the Gemara that we learn in a Brisa that a fellow, if you have a fellow and he owns an Eved, and he frees his Eved 50%, Rabbi Omer Kono. So Rabbi says, okay, so the fellow, the Eved, is now 50% free. Whereas the Chachamim say nisht. The Chachamim say nisht, no such thing. There's no such 50% freedom. Omer Rabba says Rabba machlokas bishtar. So it says Rabba that this machlokas between Rabbi and the Chachamim is with regard if he frees his Eved 50% using a document. I guess the document says you're 50% free and he gives it to him. The Rabbi says that works because ve'efte lo nifdasa o chuvsha lo nitan lo, that the pasuk says regarding a shifcha charufa that a shifcha is 50% free. It says ve'efte lo nifdasa, that is referring to kesef. That is referring to kesef, and it says ve'efte lo nifdasa, that she's redeemed but also not redeemed. I.e., she's 50% redeemed, and that's with money. O chuvsha lo nitan lo, or she wasn't freed with a shtar, a document. So we compare makish shtar le kesef, that we're comparing, right? It says vehefte lo neftasu, which is a reference to kesef, and it says o chuvsha lo nitan lo, and chuvsha is a shtar. So we're comparing a shtar to kesef. So ma kesef ben kulu ben chetzio, and just like by kesef, everyone agrees that she can be freed with kesef 50%. Now, I don't know how the master would free her with kesef, unless it's talking about maybe like a kinyan chalifin, like a shvei kesef, like a kinyan chalifin kind of thing. Maybe that's shvei kesef, but chalifin is considered kesef, I think. So, maybe she gives him something, he picks it up, and by doing that, she gets 50% of herself back. So, af shtar nami ben kulo ben chetzah. So, also with a document can be used to free 50%. So that is how Rebbe learns that even a document can free an Eved 50%. Now, v'rabbonon gamri lo meisha. But the rabbis argue with Rebbe, and they say no, a shtar cannot free 50%, only 100%, because they learn Gzeira Shaveh, that it says lo by a shifcha. It says o chuvsha lo nitan lo. And also by divorce, it says v'chosav law sefer krisus v'nosam biyado. So those are both talking about, right? So therefore, just like by divorce, it's talking about a document. So also by free, right? We're talking about a document when we're freeing an eved. And ma'isha chetzia lo, and just like when you divorce a woman with a document, it's 100% divorce. There's no such thing as 50% divorce. So av eved nami chetzio low. So also by an Eved, also there wouldn't be a possibility for 50% freedom with a document. Abba Kesef, Divya Kol Kono. but with kesef, she can be freed 50%. Peduya, vena peduya, she would be freed and not freed, i.e. 50% free. Okay, so according to Rabbah, both Rebbe and the Chachamim agree that when it comes to kesef, she can be 50% freed. However, when it comes to a shtar, Rebbe says she can be 50% free because we compare shtar to kesef, whereas the Chachamim say that with a shtar, she cannot be 50% free because we compare it to a get where there's no 50% get. So let's say that the machlokas between the Chachamim who learn it out from Gzeir Shava and Rebbe who learns it out from a Hekesh is the Marsav Hekesha Adifa, Marsav Gzeir Shava Adifa. That Rebbe says that if you have to choose between a Hekesh and a Gzeir Shava, a Hekesh is stronger. Therefore, we compare shtar to kesef. Whereas the Chacham say if you have to choose between a Gzeir Shava and a Hekesh, a Gzeir Shava is stronger. Therefore, they learn la me'isha. And for the Gemara, lo, nisht. D'chuli alma, Gzeir Shava adifa. No, everyone agrees that a Gzeir Shava is stronger than a Hekesh. V'shayni acha, but it's different. But over here, the reason why Rebbe does not use the Gzeir Shava is because because you can ask a kasha on that Gzeir Shava. What's the kasha you can ask on the Gzeir Shava? Ma le'isha, shekin ena yotze b'kesef. Tomer be'evet she yotze b'kesef. That Rebbe looks at the Gzeir Shava of the Chacham, right? That, well, it says law by Isha and it says law by Shifcha. So therefore, just like by divorce there's no 50%, so also by Shifcha there's no 50%. But says Rebbe, there's an important difference between get Isha and get Shechur, which is that by freeing an Eved, there's also there's more options. There's also the Kesef option. And the Kesef could be 50%. And therefore, says Rebbe, because there's more options when it comes to freeing an Eved, so even there's more options also when it comes to shtar, that there's a potential for a 50% shtar. And therefore, he prefers therefore not to use the Gzeir Shava and rather to use the Hekesh that compares shtar to Kesef to say that shtar can also be 50%. For Rav Yosef Omar. So that was Rabbah. So Rabbah says that everybody agrees that when it comes to Kesef, you can do 50%. When it comes to shtar, that's the machlokas. Rebbe says it works 50% and the Chacham say it doesn't. Rav Yosef Omar, but Rav Yosef says nisht. Machlokas bekesef. The machlokas between Rebbe and the Chacham is with regard to money. The Rebbe saw Rav Hefte lo niftasa p'tuya ve'ena p'tuya. Whereas, right, where Rebbe says, when the pasuk says v'hefte lo niftasa, she's redeemed, she's not redeemed, it means she's 50% redeemed, and that's talking about kesef. V'hefte lo niftasa is kesef. Whereas the Rabbanon argue, and they say, no, don't get carried away. Don't say v'hefte lo niftasa means she's redeemed, she's not redeemed, she's 50% redeemed. Nah, the Torah is speaking the way the people speak. V'hefte lo niftasa means she's not redeemed. She wasn't redeemed. Okay, but that wasn't to say she's redeemed, she's not redeemed, she's 50% redeemed. That's not... the Torah was speaking the way the Torah is, the way the people speak, but don't read into it too much. When it comes to a document, everyone agrees documents are 50%, are 100%. Documents are 100%. Right. So when it says, where am I? What did I just say? So v'hefte lo niftasa. So according to Rebbe, right? So everyone agrees that v'hefte lo niftasa is talking about kesef. Rebbe says v'hefte lo niftasa means 50%. The Rabbi said no, it's just saying it's a regular way to talk, but it doesn't mean 50%. It means entirely. Fine. Now, when it comes to shtar, however, says Rav Yosef, everyone would agree that there's no 50% by a shtar. Okay. Meisvei. We have a kasha, however. HaMeshacher chatzi avdo b'shtar. Friends, you hear that? A fellow who frees 50% of his eved with a document. Rebbe Omer Kono. Rebbe says that works. Chacham Omer lo Kono. The Chacham say that it doesn't work. Tiyufta to Rav Yosef tiyufta. So it's a kasha on Rav Yosef, because Rav Yosef had said that when it comes to a document, everyone agrees that that it doesn't work 50%. Yet here we have a brisa explicitly saying that when it comes to document, that's punct where we have this machlokus between Rebbe And the Chacham, the Rebbe says that 50% does work by a document. And then fragt die Gemara, Bishtar hu de plige, aber bekesef lo plige. Bishtar hu de plige, aber bekesef lo plige. Lemetav tufte to Rav Yosef betartis. Let's say it's a double whammy on Rav Yosef, right? Because what's the Brisa saying? The Brisa is saying that when it comes to shtar, there's a machlokas between Rebbe and the Rabbanon. So that's question number one on Rav Yosef, which is that Rav Yosef said that when it comes to a shtar, everyone agrees that there's no 50%, and yet we have a Brisa explicitly saying that when it comes to a shtar, Rebbe says that there is 50%. And question number two is that this implies that the machlokas is dafka by shtar, but by kesef, everyone would agree that there is 50%, which is question number two on Rav Yosef, who says that by kesef it's taka the machlokas. So Amalach Rav Yosef, plige b'shtar v'adin b'kesef. Rav Yosef would respond and say, however, no. He says, look, I have to admit that when it comes to a shtar, there's a machlokas there. Rebbe says 50% is okay, and the Chacham say nisht. Okay, I have to admit that there's a Brisa. I can't argue with the Brisa. However, to say that implies, however, that by kesef everyone agrees that there's 50%, that I don't agree. I don't agree with that implication. Guess what, says Rav Yosef? They argue by shtar, but they also argue, it's the same thing. They have the same argument when it comes to kesef. That Rebbe says that by kesef you can release 50%, but not, and the Chacham say that you cannot. And Rav Yosef continues and says the reason why the Brisa specifically mentions shtar is Rebbe is to tell you the extent of the position of Rebbe, that even when by a shtar you can be free, you can free 50%. Bekesef lo diacha kochel derabanan. Perfect the Gemara. But 1 second, Rav Yosef, why does the machlokas in the Brisa need to be by shtar, and to teach you the extent of the opinion of Rebbe that it says even by a shtar you can do 50%? Why not say fakert? Why not have the machlokas by kesef, and to teach you the extent of the position of the rabbis who say that even by kesef you cannot do 50%? So answer the Gemara, koach datera odif. I don't know if I skipped it. Well, if we have to choose between having the machlokas by kesef to teach the extent of the Chacham's opinion that even by kesef you can not free 50%, or if I had to choose between that and by a document to say that, right, to teach that Rebbe is saying that you can even free 50% by a document, I'd prefer the document to teach the more lenient opinion of Rebbe, because koach de'atera odif. It's much more interesting to learn about a leniency than to learn about a stringency. Anybody can teach a stringency. A leniency is more interesting. Tashma, come in here. Ve'avdei. So the pasuk says ve'avdei, that right, when it comes to kesef, you can redeem her. She can be redeemed. Yachol hakol. Is it possible that only 100%? Tamulom lo niftasu. It says she's not redeemed. Lo niftasu yachol hakol. I might think that she's not redeemed at all. Tamulom ve'avdei. It says, but she is redeemed. Okay, it said peduya ve'ene peduya. Well, she can even be redeemed 50% with kesef. Bekesef, ushve kesef, with money and equivalents of money. Ve'eli ela bekesef, b'shtar minayin. So all I know now is that she can be redeemed with kesef, and shifcha can be redeemed with kesef. How do I know that she can also be redeemed with a document? Tamlama ve'avdei lo niftasa o chufsha lo nitan lo. That chufsha lo nitan lo is a reference to a document. And it says by a get isha, which is a document. It says v'chasav la. So sefer krisus malahalim b'shtar afkan b'shtar. So just like it says la by a shifcha, right? It says chufsha lo nitan la, and it says la by a get isha, where it says v'chasav la sefer krisus v'nosam biyada. So malahalim b'shtar. So just like by get isha, it's with a document. Afkan b'shtar. So also by a shifcha, she can be free with a shtar. Einli elo chetzio bekesef or kula b'shtar. Okay, so all I know is that she can be 50% freed with money, or she can be 100% freed with a document. Chetzio b'shtar minayin. How do I know that even with the document she could be redeemed 50%? Tamlom ve'afdei lo niftasa or chufsha lo nitan lo. What says ve'afdei lo niftasa, which is talking about kesef, that she can be 50% freed with kesef. Or chufsha lo nitan lo, but we then have chufsha, right, which is a document immediately afterwards, makis shtar lekesef, we compare a shtar to the kesef, makesef ben kulo ben chetzio, just like by kesef, the kesef can be used to free her entirely or 50%, av shtar nami ben kulo ben chetzio. So also by a document, the document can free her entirely or 50%. So now, says the Gemara, B'shlomo Rav Yosef. So I understand according to Rav Yosef's opinion, that Rav Yosef had initially said that the machlokas between Rebbe and the Chachamim is by kesef, but by shtar everyone would agree that you can't do 50%. We proved him wrong from a brisa. He then ended up saying, you know what? The machlokas between Rebbe and the Chachamim is both by kesef as well as by shtar, which means that Rebbe's opinion is that when it comes to kesef as well as when it comes to shtar, you can free a shifcha 50%. Now the Chacham would argue and say that both by kesef and by shtar you cannot do 50%, only 100%. But according to Rav Yosef, he says the machlokas is both by kesef and by shtar. So whose opinion is this in the brisa that we just said that both by kesef and by shtar you can release 50%? So basu di itosiv ha money Rebbe. So after Rav Yosef, admitted that the machlokas is both by kesef as well as by shtar, so clearly the opinion in this brisa is Rebbe's opinion. The brisa says that you can free her 50% both with kesef and with the shtar, according to Rav Yosef. That's the opinion of Rebbe. But according to Rabba says that by kesef, everyone agrees that you can release 50%. By shtar, it's only the opinion of Rebbe. Well, if that's the case, then we should make that distinction in this brisa, right? This brisa makes it seem like it's all one opinion, right? It talks about kesef, it talks about shtar, it says you can do 50% by both. But according to Rabbi, you should have to make a distinction that kesef isn't only one, everyone agrees, whereas opposed to shtar, it's only the opinion of Rebbe. So Reisha Divrei Hakol, the Reisha is everybody agrees, V'Sefer Rebbe, whereas the Sefer is only Rebbe. So Amalach Rabba will say to you in Reisha Divrei Hakol, V'Sefer Rebbe. Rabba will say, yeah, that's correct. The first part is everybody's opinion. The second part is only Rebbe's opinion. Rav Ashi Amar Rebbe. Whereas Rav Ashi says, no, just even according to Rabba, you could still say, look, Rebbe wrote this entire thing. It's this is referring to the opinion of Rebbe, who would say that it's both by the kesef as well as by the shtar, and it's all just, this is Rebbe writing this brisa. Elamas nisin dekatani mishechetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin. Now, our Mishnah, which talks about a fellow who's 50% Eved and 50% Ben Chorin. So, B'shlomo the Rabbah, so I understand according to Rabbah, Mukim la B'kesef v'divrei hakol. So, Rabbah says that, well, you could say it's talking about where he was freed B'kesef, and it's according to, and everybody agrees that he's freed with Kesef. Rav Yosef, right, he could be freed 50% with kesef. Rav Yosef, lema Rebbe v'lo rabbanon. But if it's according to Rav Yosef, our Mishnah, which talks about being an Eved who's 50% free and 50% Eved, so that would dafka be the opinion of Rebbe, not the opinion of the rabbis. Because according to Rav Yosef, the rabbis never would allow you to free 50%, not by kesef and not by shtar. So Amar Ravina says be'Eved shel shnei shutfim v'divrei hakol. But Ravina says, yeah, but you could say, even according to Rav Yosef, it's talking about an Eved who's owned by two partners, and one of them freed, his entire portion. And even Rav Yosef would say that the rabbis would agree that if you have two partners and, one of them frees his entire portion, that would be acceptable, right? Where the rabbis say it's not okay is for if the Eved's owned by one person, you can't just free him 50%. But if it's two people, and one of them frees 100% of his 50% of his 50-50 ownership, even the Chacham would agree that works. Friends, that was Daf Mem Aleph of Masechet Gittin. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.